Hello and welcome to the Six Figure Developer Podcast, the podcast where we talk about new and exciting technologies, professional development, clean code, career advancement, and more. I'm John Calloway.
I'm Clayton Hunt.
And I'm John Ash.
Today we're talking to Richard Taylor. Richard, for the last 10 years, has focused on web-based applications and has recently began to explore mobile application development. He currently serves as Director of Engineering at SentryOne. Richard is a believer of using the right tools for the right job to deliver. Richard is a believer of using the right tools for the job to deliver solutions. Welcome, Richard.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So before we kind of get started, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe how you get started in the industry?
Sure. So I've been in this crazy industry for the last 25 years or so. I started out when I was 14, and my mother bought me a Commodore 64, and that was all she wrote at that point. I taught myself programming, started out with BASIC, and then I actually asked for an assembler cartridge so I can write assembly, taught myself assembly, and wrote some games. And that's kind of how I got started, and then went to college for computer science, and that's kind of all she wrote.
What games did you write?
So I was a huge fan of Galactica, so I wrote sort of a replica of that. Now my sprites weren't as good as the arcade game, but at least I could play it. So things like that, asteroids, and just some like stupid little games just to kind of play around with, just to learn programming.
Okay. So what are you doing today? What do you do these days?
So today I am the Vice President of Engineering for SentryOne, and I basically lead the software engineering team, and we build software for what's called the Microsoft Data Professional, and it's geared towards performance tuning, monitoring, diagnosing the SQL Server or the Microsoft Data Platform. So that's kind of what I'm into for my day job. I spend a lot of time in the community. I actually lead a couple of users groups here. One's called Modern Day of Charlotte, which is sort of a technology agnostic group where we talk about all aspects of development from front end, back end, database, you name it, we talk about it. Our philosophy is that when you're building enterprise solutions, that it consists of quite a few things that developers have to deal with. So we try to cover that. And then, more recently, in the last maybe year and a half or so, I've been spending a lot of time digging into mobile development and with using Xamarin. And Xamarin's kind of been my tool of choice since I'm a .NET developer, and it's quite natural. Actually, I'm quite amazed at what I can do just by using that tool set and not having spent a huge amount of time in the mobile ecosystems. So that's my life. And I have 5 kids and I'm married, so, I'm busy.
Awesome.
Well, appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So you've got, looks like you've cornered the market on Rightin Code, the domain, Twitter account, GitHub account, and you speak pretty regularly on doing software right. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So obviously it's a slight play on words, but my thing has been in my career is trying to use the right tools for the right problem, and making sure that understanding that there's a million different ways of solving problems, but there's a certain set of solutions that are correct, and making sure that we at least strive for that. You can easily point out when something's wrong, and there's always an alternative to deliver something right. So that's kind of been my mantra, and it sticks.
Don't know what that was. We'll cut that out.
Oh, sorry, that was.
I don't know what it was.
That was Outlook. That was Outlook. Sorry.
No problem.
And that was Slack or maybe Skype.
That was Slack. I'm turning it off now. Sorry, guys.
I'm cool with playing Name That Tune.
Wait, where the Zen? Oh, we can't hear the Zencaster effects.
I mean, I can. We got.
I can repeat that if you want me to.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So you want to ask a question again? You want to start there?
We can kind of just pick up from there.
Okay.
So among those right tools for the job in your longer bio that we'll be sure to put in the show notes, you list ASP.NET, Web API, MVC, SQL Server, MongoDB, Angular, Bootstrap, JavaScript, NodeJS, KendoUI, and Xamarin. That was more than a mouthful. So how do you go about choosing the right tool for the job, or what process do you go through to determine what the right tool for a particular job might look like?
So that's a great question. I think a lot of it really depends on an experience, right? So kind of where the battle scars have been. I think we've all built systems where we thought we were going down the right path, and it worked for a point. You maybe ran into scalability issues or security issues or new requirements that just doesn't fit to the solution, and so. With all of those battle scars that all of us receive as we're building these systems, we start to kind of fall into sort of this process where we start to ask all of those questions up front, and we start to get a feel for where things are going, and then try to anticipate things. Like, for a good example might be, well, I need to build a system, and we're a startup, and we don't anticipate a lot of users, but we still need to be able to scale. So that might lead someone to come up with API based solution, and actually served out of the cloud, so that we can actually scale that when needed. So things like that, and that's that kind of history and perspective plays a part not only in the overall system architecture, but also in the software. I mean, if we're trying to build systems that are scalable and flexible, a lot of that stuff comes to the forefront when we're thinking about these solutions, and it really comes with a lot of experience.
Oh, lost my note. There it is. Okay. All right. And so you've been doing this for a number of years now, and you've picked up surely a collection of tools in your toolkit. And you mentioned that you've been playing around with Xamarin most recently. How do you go about finding the time to dive into the new technologies? You mentioned you've got a full family and full schedule associated with that, I'm sure. So how do you find the time to stay up on the latest and greatest?
Yeah, that's a tough one. The easy answer is lack of sleep. But really what I have been focusing on lately is digging into a lot of the technology sort of after work, but during the week. So I sort of have this agreement with the family that, look, Monday through Friday, I will give it all to work and community and learning all these tools and preparing for sessions and things like that. And then the weekends are for you guys. So, if you kind of arrange your schedules that way, then we can kind of meet on the weekends and hang out. So really it's Monday through Friday. It's kind of crazy. But then I kind of settle down on Saturdays and Sundays and kind of relax.
Nice.
So.
I'd love to know how you pitched that.
Interesting. Well, my kids, my youngest is 8, so they have their school schedules and things like that. So they're pretty busy during the week, and so it actually balances out. When they were younger, it was a lot tougher.
Yeah, my youngest is 1.
Yeah.
Doesn't work out so well.
Yeah, you're responding to that schedule, not not setting that schedule.
All right, and currently you serve as director of engineering at SentryOne. I know that at least in my Twitter feed and LinkedIn feed, I noticed that SentryOne has been on a hiring spree and gobbling up a lot of the people that I have connections with and follow through social networks. Mm-hmm. Tell us more about your position there and what that role entails.
Sure. So actually, I need to update that because I was actually promoted to vice president of engineering. So I actually have the engineering department as a whole, and basically we are expanding our team. You're actually I just hired a team that's actually in Dublin, Ireland, that will be onboarding next month. So I'll be there for a week or so, and we've been focused on doing a number of things. We're expanding our platform and expanding our suite of products, and we need developers. And I've been there for a little over a year now, and it's been pretty exciting to see it grow. And we've got some great ideas from our CTO. He's actually a database guy, but he is one of those genius type individuals who comes up with all of these great ideas and just we want to build on our products and things like that. So we've got like a huge roadmap of things, and so we need resources, and that's where we're hiring. So I've been in the community, I've met a lot of people, and when the minute someone says, "Hey, I might be looking to do something different," I'm right there to say, "Hey, we're looking to hire some people," and and it's worked out. It's worked out very well. I mean, I made some friends over the years, and now I work with them, and it's great. It's been great.
So
you do.
In that position, are you still right tool for the right job? Like is where you are currently is it the technology stack as anything goes, or is it fairly locked down to 2 or 3 different technologies?
It is not locked down to 2 or 3 technologies. We're definitely a Microsoft shop, but we try to stay on the cutting edge. So a good example, when .NET Standard 2.0 came out, all the libraries that we could move to that, we did. When we can use .NET Core 2.0 or 2.1, we use those platforms. We push the envelope on the full framework, .NET 4.7.2. We've been pushing there. So we're pretty progressive when it comes to the platform. Now there are some limitations in terms of like customer base having older technology going back several versions of SQL Server or several versions of the Windows Server that we still have to support. But for the most part, we're always looking for the latest and greatest, whether it's technology that's part of our solution, whether it's processes that are part of our development, and then tools that we use within development. So we're always pushing the envelope.
Okay. I mean, to be fair, C# can do most things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty cool language. I like it.
Blazor.
I mean, it's all right.
It's all right. Don't let our friend David Pine hear you say that.
He gives as good as he gets, so I think we're okay.
Oh, I hear
you. Yeah, and you're also fairly active in the community. Mm-hmm. What's your involvement in the community these days, and what's your favorite aspect about community involvement in technology sphere? Sure.
So as far as my expectations are concerned, either if I'm speaking at a conference or speaking at a users group, my end goal is to make sure that attendees get some level of value out of what I'm presenting, whether it's one little nugget or it completely changes how they do things. One of the, if I could tell a short story, one of the greatest things that it actually validated a lot of what I was doing. I was working on a couple of blog posts for my Xamarin stuff, and I presented a few of the items at the Xamarin group, and one of the attendees is actually a professor at a local community college. And he said to me one day, he said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that I was actually assigning my students your blog posts and your Git reposts for them to review, and then I was actually using that as a way for them to learn, and I actually tested them on it," which I thought was, wow, that was pretty cool. I didn't expect that. So, but that type of learning and just exposure and those little nuggets is kind of what drives me. So, and of course, the benefit for me is I get to play with all the cool stuff and learn new stuff and apply it to the job when I can, and even on personal projects. So.
Yeah, and it looks like you've got a couple of speaking engagements coming up in October.
Yes, I will be at Tech Bash. It's actually my second time there, speaking one session on Xamarin and one session on unit testing, and then I'm at All Things Open in Raleigh in the latter part of the month, and actually that's another Xamarin and Azure talk. So cool stuff.
You want to give us a little preview of the Xamarin and Azure?
Sure. So so the Xamarin talk, and as a matter of fact, I have a few reference apps that I have been using over the last couple of conferences, and I'm actually going to do a new one. So I think I'm going to play around with creating something along the lines of a speaker tool where a speaker can basically kind of pull together all of their topics and abstracts and things like that, possibly gather feedback, take pictures while they're before and after their session, things like that, and kind of create sort of a portfolio type of thing, and possibly even throw in some location stuff where maybe you have a favorite speaker or friend or something like that. You can find out where they are from that app, and tie that into like using Azure for notifications and storage and things like that, and authentication, authorization, all that good stuff. So I think I'm going to try to put that together over the next 30 days or so and kind of see where it goes, and then open source it and talk about all the different aspects of it and kind of showcase Xamarin and showcase Azure is the plan.
Yeah, would you say that Xamarin's sort of like the technology you're really excited about right at the moment, or that you've been kind of enjoying?
Yeah, Xamarin's been my focus this last, I say within probably the last 12 months. I think a lot of people are, quite honestly, sleeping on its potential. There's a lot of momentum that I see building. Like in my area, we are a small group, but it's steadily growing. People are coming in and what's the Xamarin thing, and so I've been watching the team and Microsoft kind of really push kind of what's going on with it, and personally I think for shops that are .NET shops with C# developers, if you want or need to build a mobile experience for whatever tools or products you're building, it's obvious that's the tool you use, and you can share assets between projects and things like that. If you want to back end things with a web API, and then you can have your WPF apps and your Xamarin apps using the same API. I mean, the sky's the limit. So I think it's a way to go for most I would say business-oriented apps. Now, I'm not sure if I would try to build a game with it, but definitely for a majority of apps that are out there that are sort of business-oriented.
So what is your experience like? Have you run into like any sort of snags or kind of gotchas that sort of stand out in using it?
I have not personally. I think a couple of the challenges you run into is some of the like, for instance, if you want to utilize Xamarin Forms, which basically is abstracting away the user interface. There are some limits in terms of what it can do and how far you can go with that. There's a solution with custom renderers and things like that, but um, uh, once you get to custom renderers, now you're getting into you're getting closer to the individual ecosystems and having to maintain multiple sets of code. But it's a small price to pay. Again, most apps, honestly, you can abstract away a lot of what's there and have a common code base and use it across all of the target platforms.
Yeah, Xamarin's pushed the envelope of where you have to actually start messing with the Swift or I guess now it'd be Kotlin. They've pushed it back quite a bit, haven't they? Like how much Android and iOS development do you actually have to do if all you're doing is like a line of business app?
Very little, if any. Most of everything that I use as reference apps, I stay away from a lot of the platform specific stuff. But to be honest, just because you're using C#, you're not limited. You can actually go and write against the SDKs for each one of the platforms. There's nothing hindering you from doing that. But why do it when you can have one code base that you can share across all of your targets? It just makes sense.
Yeah, we're a consulting company, the company I work for, and one of the things that we've heard a lot from different businesses and people that are out there, they're looking for Xamarin solutions. They're seeking it as an option, as a potential key to the solutions that they're looking for.
Yeah, it definitely is a viable option, and you will start to see more and more momentum around this platform because it definitely gives you a true cross-platform experience with one code base. It takes a little work, but and when I say work, meaning intentional design goals, right? But but if you have that set up properly, then you can basically achieve what you're trying to achieve.
And then you also mentioned that you're going to have an Azure talk. So what are you going to be talking about in that?
Yeah, well, actually, it's a combination.
Combination.
It's a Xamarin app that's actually going to be using Azure for some of the backend services.
Okay, cool.
Doing any Azure functions?
No, I'm not going to do any Azure functions. I don't have anything against Azure functions, but it won't be part of that solution. I really want to showcase the authentication and authorization pieces. So roughly 9 months ago, there was a pretty significant update to the B2C functionality in servicing various types of apps, and Xamarin is one type that can use it. So I want to show that portion, as well as then some of the storage options that you can use. Data synchronization being one of them.
But is authentication and authorization, is that important?
It can be. It definitely can be. So a good example around it is like, for instance, maybe there's certain features that the API needs to secure because there's some private information or some information that the speaker, in my case for this app, would have access to, but the person that's just running the app doing searches and things like that wouldn't. So we definitely want to authenticate for that. And then maybe some things around like keeping things private in terms of maybe photos or notes or things like that. We want to secure those things as well. So we don't want that to be publicly accessible on an open API, for sure.
Excellent. So one of the things we always ask the people that come on if they have any sort of words of wisdom or advice for people that might be getting started, just trying to grow their knowledge and their career. And you specifically you're talking about like doing the right thing and how or doing software right, and how you have to kind of build up this experience, that kind of lets you know what decisions are the right. So do you have anything that you might be able to kind of direct people on how do they go about learning that?
Sure. So the things that I would focus on, if I'm a new dev, and actually this is where we take our new devs on our team who graduate into our junior program. We teach them solid principles to start. Then we teach them writing testable code, and then we teach TDD, but not TDD is an option. It does. We don't require people to do TDD, but just to understand what TDD is. And then we dig into some more of the I guess implementation details around inversion of control and what that means and how that impacts testing and so forth and so on, so that they have a good solid foundation. And I didn't mean to play on the word, but a foundation on building good software that does the job, but also is maintainable and expandable, and lends itself to be, I guess, easily worked on when you get into groups of people working on software and so forth and so on. So I would say try to nail those, and then the rest of the stuff is pretty easy and non-unique. I mean, a language is syntax. I mean, you should, if you're understanding good principles, then the syntax and the language really doesn't matter, right? You just move from one to the other, right? So just make sure you have a good foundation on software engineering principles and put them to practice, and know when to recognize things, know when you're going down the wrong path. I always use this example when we're talking about single responsibilities. Like, look, if I see a method, it takes an ID, it queries, and then inline the method, it queries a database, runs some business logic, then creates a new object and returns that as a type. Something's wrong. that's not right. So please fix that. So I think that foundation, I think puts developers on a good, especially junior devs, on a good course for a great career in software development.
Okay. Do you have specific resources that you guys, point your junior devs to, or?
Sure. A lot of, we do some internal training. We actually have some of our devs will teach these principles in our training room, but we're big fans of, and I'm not really plugging Pluralsight, but Pluralsight is a tool that we use, and we've set up some courses and channels so that new hires will come on, run through those videos to learn all sorts of things. A lot of what I just mentioned, plus language specific, SQL Server, we'll kind of take them through that on a schedule and work through that. So that's sort of our favorite way of learning. And then we'll have, we'll also do every other week, we do a knowledge share between our teams. So one team will have the floor 1 week and speak on a certain aspect or area of our software and share knowledge that way. So, but definitely, the information is out there. I mean, it really is out there. It's amazing. Sometimes we have a technical assessment that we give folks to join our team, and it's more of an exercise of, can you research and solve a problem, less about what you can remember. And all the information is out there. It's just a matter of having a good skill on researching problems and kind of pulling things together and applying it to the problem that you're dealing with. So yeah, I mean, just Pluralsight, books, internet. I mean, it's all there.
Awesome. And I know we mentioned it earlier, but maybe you can give another plug for yourself. But what where can people find you? What was your Twitter handle?
Sure. So I'm most active on Twitter. I'm at Rightin Code. It's RIGHTIN Code. My GitHub is the same. My blog is at www.writincode.com. So any of those is the easiest way of getting a hold of me.
Excellent.
All right. Excuse me. All right. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That was Richard Taylor. For the last 10 years, he has focused on web-based applications and has recently began to explore mobile application development. He currently serves as something else now.
That word is director.
Vice President.
Vice President of Engineering at SentryOne. He currently serves as Vice President of Engineering at SentryOne. Richard is a believer of using the right tools for the job to deliver solutions.
If you like this episode, please like, rate, and review on iTunes.
Find show notes, blog posts, and more at sixfiguredev.com.
And be sure to follow us on Twitter at sixfiguredev.
This has been another episode of the Six Figure Developer Podcast, helping others reach their potential. I am John Calloway.
I am Clayton Hunt.
And I am John Ash.